Number 10. Justin Williams. Something went terribly wrong between 24-year-old Justin Williams and 22-year-old Deja Johnson, and it ended with Johnson being murdered, dismembered, and stuffed into 2 suitcases, which were kept in her Brooklyn apartment for over a month. Williams lived alongside his girlfriend's decomposing remains in her Cypress Hills apartment, using cleaning supplies and towels to stifle the smell as much as possible. According to detectives, he also left the windows open. Police discovered the carnage when they were called to conduct a welfare check at Johnson's home. Immediately upon entering, officers noticed pools of blood on the floor. It's safe to assume that the smell led them to the location of her body. Surveillance footage showed Johnson entering her apartment after a work shift one night in August of 2022, but she was never seen alive again. The evidence led investigators to one person, Williams. He allegedly waived his Miranda rights and admitted to the murder during questioning. Authorities charged him with murder and concealment of a human corpse. They're accusing him of stabbing the victim 9 times, 5 times to the front of the torso and 4 times to the back. Williams will face life in prison if convicted. Number 9. Ewan Jewett. 40-year-old Julie Minogue was brutally killed with an axe in Milford, Connecticut in 2022. Her teenage son witnessed the horrifying attack and dialed 911 to report it. The young man told police that he was woken up by the sound of his mother screaming. He also thought he overheard her yelling, "You didn't believe me." According to court documents obtained by Fox 61, he came downstairs to find his mom's boyfriend, Ewan Dewitt, standing over his mother's body. Dewitt was holding an axe and he was covered in blood. The teen ran back upstairs and called the police before jumping out his bedroom window to the ground below. Responding officers found Minogue's lifeless body on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood, and there was a large axe on the stove nearby. In addition to her 17-year-old son, the victim's other child was also in the home at the time. Luckily, they were both physically unharmed and were placed in a family member's care. By then, Dewitt had fled the scene. Police tracked him through ring camera footage provided by a neighbor, and his mother also told officers that he called her and told her he had killed his girlfriend. Law enforcement caught up with Dewitt in West Haven and charged him with murder. According to an affidavit obtained by People magazine, Minogue feared Dewitt would kill her. She'd recently obtained a restraining order against him, writing in the application that she didn't feel she should be subjected to his abuse any longer. And it wasn't Dewitt's first encounter with the police either. In 2019, he was arrested for allegedly assaulting Minogue, at which time she was also given a restraining order. Sadly, regardless of the circumstances, her children are without a mother, and her family is left to pick up the pieces and move on. Number 8. Hunter Tatum. In October 2021, 26-year-old Summer Tatum discovered inappropriate text messages between her husband Hunter and another woman. On top of having cerebral palsy and being 6 months pregnant at the time, Summer now faced the additional stress of an argument with her husband that lasted for days in their Prattville, Alabama home. She was ultimately rushed to the hospital with gunshot wounds, but sadly she died from her injuries. Doctors tried to perform a premature delivery of her unborn son, Everett, but he also perished. During questioning, Hunter claimed that he and Summer wrestled over a gun and accidentally caused it to discharge during the struggle. But according to Assistant District Attorney Sarah Speaks, who accused Hunter of shooting his wife in the back of the head twice, the evidence told a much different story. Hunter was subsequently charged with 2 counts of murder. In an impassioned argument in court, Speaks said that Summer was on her knees in front of her husband, and her last words were, "Please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me." Before he stopped speaking with investigators and hired a lawyer, Hunter gave a statement to police that Speaks described as an admission to the cold-blooded murder of his pregnant, disabled wife. Hunter's attorney, Trey Norman, told the Montgomery Advisor that his client didn't admit to killing anyone in cold blood. He said that both Hunter and Summer each owned a gun and that they kept their guns beside their bed. Norman also claimed that the suspect spent days begging Summer to reconcile with him after she discovered that he was sexting with a woman in England. Prosecutors confirmed that Summer owned the .38 caliber revolver that fired the fatal bullet, but they are still confident that Hunter's responsible for her death. Hunter is scheduled to go to trial in June of 2023, which will hopefully bring the case to a long-awaited end for Summer's loved ones. If convicted, he'll face either the death penalty or life in prison. And by all appearances, the prosecution plans to pursue the death penalty full force. Number 7. Aftab Paonawala. After meeting through a dating app in 2019, Aftab Paonawala and Shraddha Walker moved in together in the Indian city of Delhi. Their relationship was tumultuous, and the pair argued frequently, especially as Shraddha pressured Aftab to get married. But their loved ones never imagined that things would get as bad as they did in 2022 when Aftab allegedly strangled Shraddha to death during one of their many arguments. He then dismembered her body into at least 35 pieces and bought a refrigerator specifically for storing her remains. Aftab spent the next 16 days disposing of his lover's body parts by dumping them in various locations in a nearby forest in the middle of the night. A few months later, Shraddha's father filed a missing persons report with the police, saying that one of his daughter's friends had become concerned after they were unable to reach her and realized that her phone was turned off. Law enforcement began investigating the young woman's whereabouts, only to discover that Aftab had cleaned the crime scene meticulously and had gone to great efforts to cover his tracks. Even the fridge he used to hold Shraddha's remains contained no trace of blood or other biological evidence. But Aftab eventually admitted to killing Shraddha and said that he burned incense to mask the odor of her decomposing remains. He now faces a murder charge in connection with her death. Speaking with India Today, expert psychologist Dr. Sandeep Vora said that it wouldn't surprise him if there was more than one victim. In Vora's words, Aftab is either a hardened criminal or a full-fledged psychopath who might have done similar acts in the past. He added that an act as horrific as what Aftab did to Shraddha isn't something that a normal person is capable of. For now, investigators have found no evidence that Aftab has victimized others. Hopefully, he'll never get the opportunity to do so. Number 6. Naeem Vera. Anyone who's experienced a dysfunctional relationship knows what it's like when an argument drags on all night long and into the early morning hours, but you never expect these squabbles to end in death. That was unfortunately what happened in the case of 19-year-old Naeem Vera, who made headlines in 2020 for allegedly killing his girlfriend, 24-year-old Brenda Michaela Gordillo, in Argentina. The pair were in the midst of an explosive disagreement about Brenda possibly being pregnant when they decided to go somewhere more private to hash things out. They went to a vacant apartment owned by Vera's family in Catamarca province, where Vera lost his temper and shoved Brenda, sending her tumbling down a flight of stairs. Unfortunately, this led to her death. The panicked killer wrapped the young woman's body in a blanket and attempted to burn her remains. He then put her body parts into garbage bags and left them in a nearby dumpster. Based on Vera's version of events, it sounded like he didn't mean to kill Brenda, but he clearly took a calculated and gruesome effort to conceal her remains rather than come forward and admit to the consequences of his actions. Investigators found a piece of his skin under Brenda's nail, indicating that she fought for her life in a struggle against him. This also suggested to authorities that there was more to their fight than him flying off the deep end and shoving her just one time. They concluded that someone asphyxiated Brenda by holding a piece of cloth over her face, proving that her killer experienced more than just a momentary lapse of judgment. Vera is currently serving a life sentence behind bars for killing his girlfriend. Number 5. Brittany Wilson. On Christmas Eve 2021, police in Cape Girardeau, Missouri received a 911 call about suspicious activity. Officers responded to the residence and encountered 32-year-old Brittany Wilson. She was standing in the front lawn wearing bloody clothing, and she had a sword in her hand. In the bedroom, they found 34-year-old Harrison Stephen Foster dead from multiple stab wounds. Wilson allegedly told the police that she and Foster had used methamphetamine earlier in the day. She also reportedly said that she believed multiple entities were inhabiting her boyfriend's body for several months leading up to the deadly incident. By stabbing him, she truly believed she was freeing him from possession. Wilson also claimed that Foster was harvesting body parts from humans. Her delusions resulted in her stabbing him 3 times before dialing 911. In the end, authorities charged her with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. She's currently being held in jail on a $2 million bond, but she has yet to be sentenced, and the case is ongoing. Number 4. Mohippets in Parma. What started out as a petty disagreement between a farm worker named Mohippets in Parma and his wife Daksha ended in death one day in 2022. Daksha kept calling Mohippets mad, and for some reason it pushed him over the edge. He brutally hacked his wife to death and fled the scene, but law enforcement was quick to catch up with him in a neighboring village. Mohippets allegedly admitted to the crime and described how outraged he was when Daksha kept taking verbal jabs at his mental state. When he could no longer take the alleged insults, he said he attacked her with a sharp-edged weapon. Locals rushed Daksha to the hospital, but sadly she died from her injuries. She suffered severe blood loss from a severed neck artery. Police said it was the second incident that year where a husband hacked his wife to death in the area. In early 2022, a man took an axe to his wife's head and neck during one of their many fights about money. Both men are facing murder charges and are at the mercy of India's notoriously slow criminal justice system, where cases are often known to drag on for years before a conclusion is reached. Number 3. Diana Hembree. In Ohio in 2021, 40-year-old Diana Hembree and her boyfriend, 51-year-old Michael Mudrick, got into an argument over pizza. It ended with Hembree shooting Mudrick in the neck, leaving him paralyzed. Mudrick managed to utter the words, "She shot me," to paramedics, while Hembree initially claimed that the gun fell out of its case and fired when it hit the floor. She changed her story, though, and said that she carried the gun into the bedroom and dropped it, and that it went off accidentally. Authorities charged Hembree with attempted murder and felonious assault. Prosecutors offered to drop the attempted murder charge if she pleaded guilty to the assault charge, and she agreed. In the meantime, Mudrick was put in a nursing home. Unfortunately, he died from his injuries in 2022, leaving behind 6 children and 16 grandkids. Hembree's now facing a mandatory 3-year sentence as part of her plea deal, but her case is ongoing. Number 2. Jason Chen. 22-year-old Jasmine "Jazzy" Pace's family became concerned when she didn't show up to her family's Thanksgiving dinner in 2022. They filed a missing persons report and shared information about her last known location at her boyfriend Jason Chen's apartment complex in Chattanooga. Jazzy's mom, Katrina Pace, somehow gained entry into the apartment and found her daughter's ID and several of her credit cards. Pace also noticed some cleaning supplies that appeared to be recently purchased. There have been no other signs of Jazzy since her disappearance, except for her abandoned vehicle, which was found on a roadside in the area. She planned to leave Chattanooga for a few days, according to the Dade County Sheriff's Office in Georgia, but based on the evidence, it seems as though she never reached her destination. At some point throughout the course of the investigation, Chen became the top suspect in her disappearance. Authorities eventually came to the conclusion that she was most likely killed, and they charged Chen with murder, saying that they found more evidence in his apartment, pointing towards his possible guilt. For now, they're being tight-lipped regarding the details of what they believe happened to Jazzy. But to charge Chen for murder without a body most likely means they have a strong circumstantial case. Number 1. Nicole Dennison. In 2020, a 29-year-old flight attendant named Nicole Dennison walked into her Tampa area home to find her husband in bed with another woman. She was understandably enraged and allegedly punched her unfaithful partner, leaving him with a black eye. But she didn't stop there. After giving her husband a shiner, Dennison reportedly flew into a blind rage and smashed his guitar, leaving a large hole in the wall. According to an arrest affidavit, responding officers noticed that Dennison displayed signs indicating that she might be under the influence of alcohol. Dennison was charged with misdemeanor domestic battery and was released on her own recognizance. She was also allowed to continue having contact with the victim while the case worked its way through the court system. Would you rather be the only person around to intervene while witnessing what appears to be someone trying to drown their partner, or be stuck camping in the middle of nowhere next door to a complete stranger who seems slightly unhinged? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.